Hi, I'm Professor Burton at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in the Fashion Department, and today we're going to do sewing in Clo3D. So when you jump into your 2D window, you can use 4 different sewing tools. The first one is the segment sewing tool, and this one is very straightforward. If you click on one side of a pattern and then click on the other, you get these 2 notches, and when you go over to the 3D window, you should find them stitched together. Mine is already simulated here, so I'll right click and reset 2D arrangement and then simulate, and they go together. And the next tool is free sewing. This one is also really handy both in the 2D and 3D windows. For this tool, click and drag across one small shape here, and you can see that little dot show up, and that tells you the exact length. And you can do this all the way across your pattern piece. Something like this here. And by the way, if you want to move those around, you can come up to the Edit Pattern tool and then adjust them later. Here's the Edit Pattern tool, and if I zoom in, I can move those stitches around and then resimulate. The next one here is the M and N segment tool, and it's hard to remember this, but the M and N segment, we sew the big side to the smaller pattern pieces. So that one is up here, and we click once and we get a notch which tells us which side to be on, and then we get this prompt: press enter to finish or complete the M. And you can see that it switches to begin N. And then we can click on the other pattern pieces. And as long as the notch is on the same side, we're good. Hit enter to complete. And if we go to the 3D window, unfreeze and simulate. And there are our pattern pieces. M and N free sewing tool is sort of the opposite. You'll be in situations where you need the M and N free sewing tool to start with a small side first. So in this case, you click once, click again, and you click across all of these smaller pieces, then hit enter, and then click and drag across the larger piece and hit enter. Simulate, and you're good to go. Last is the Edit Pattern tool, and this one is, of course, handy, and I showed you how you can move things around. But say you have something that has 2 sides, like this pattern piece, sewn to one side of another pattern piece. Use the Edit Pattern tool to identify those, and in the 2D window up here, you can see one and then the other. But you can't assign specific colors to these stitches that I know of anyway. So what I do, if I'm trying to identify which one is which, I label them. The reason this is important is sometimes you need to select those stitches on the spot that they're all stitched to, right? And so in this case, if I need to make an edit to only the top, I can right click the stitch, then right click, and I'll then get the delete, or say I need to reverse the sewing, or any of these options that I might need. Also, you can move these stitches around just like the other ones. And in the 3D window, move that over. So the next tip I have for you is free sewing in a situation like this, where you have a sleeve cap that needs to be sewn to this side of the front of the bodice, and then this side to the back of the bodice pattern pieces. I have the split screen window open when I do this, and use the free sewing tool or the M and N free sewing tool. The front's pretty easy because you just click and drag across the front of the cap, and then you can see in the 3D window exactly where I'm going to sew. The other part is counterintuitive. You could come around here and try and free sew this to that, but I find it easier just to remember this: near to near, far to far. So this is the opposite side, and it should go to the far side here, and you can see reflected in the 3D window exactly where I'm going to stitch. And that's an easy way to remember patterns that are flipped in the 2D window and where to stitch and sew them. I hope these quick tips on sewing in Clo3D have been helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments.